how many people understand what the airborne threat is? So this is all the airborne protocols that are essentially able to transmit data and information around and within your buildings. So why is that a problem? There's not a lot of defense for airborne threats. One of the biggest is drones that can fly around. They can do a lot of destruction, espionage, terrorism, things like that. It's a cybersecurity problem. You got to monitor frequencies in the air, and anything above your building all the way up to space is an airborne threat. And one of the biggest domains in the world for threats today in our society is satellite communications, RF spectrum analysis, detection, mitigation against those types of airborne protocols. That's probably one. Another one randomly is insider threats. 50+% of all the breaches in the world are coming from insiders today. And it's a major problem. Not a lot of tools or capability to track insiders now. You don't know how you're onboarding an insider. You don't know how to monitor the insider. This little thing called privacy and security is a bit of a tug of war. So it's very difficult to monitor employees or contractors. And we're seeing a major epidemic of insider threats, disgruntled employees, terrorism, all kinds of espionage related to an inside-out problem versus an outside-in problem. The world of IoT and industrial IoT, another major area that's just exploding before our eyes, literally and figuratively. And we're starting to see just high growth of devices connected to the network that are invisible or unmanaged, and they're vulnerable. The supply chains are compromised. How do we manage that? How do we mitigate against that? Are all types of issues that we're seeing. One of the biggest domains in the world right now are industrial OT networks and ICS networks. If you're paying attention to some of the biggest potential kinetic challenges related to cyber, it's happening on this side. Lack of air gapping came out with NotPetya, and some of the other ransomware attacks exposed this.
One of the areas that there have been a lot of innovation over the years, but there's still need for more innovation, need for a better way to do this is essentially application security. If you look at the traditional security domains, network security, cloud security, endpoint security, et cetera, how do we really control the processes, the data, and this could be across the pane, right? Whether it is IT, OT, all of that put together. It's an incredibly complex space. There is potential for a ton of innovation in that space, so that's a very important space for more continued innovation. And then the second piece I would mention is IT, OT coming togetherness, however you want to call that, IT, OT overlap. A lot of times we've all essentially said that OT is a different buyer, different universe. They don't understand as much as the IT guys. It's not necessarily true. It's just that the problems are different. How do you bring all of those pieces together so that you make those problems one and solve it together so there is better coordination between IT and OT? I totally see that as a very important market for us to conquer over the next several years.
When you're a CISO, you really want to do all these cool things, IT, OT, API security. But if you have a crappy password program, the users, they can't get over themselves. All they see when they see you is you're preventing me from doing my job. You're the one that's making me do all these downloads. You're the one doing X, Y, Z. I can barely get my job done because you, security queen, are in the way. So for me, what I'm thinking about right now is frictionless security, and it's how to make my end users happy.
I bucket things into two categories, the sort of how do we work better and the really new and evolution side. In identity, I think that kind of crosses both sides. I think there's a lot of great stuff that's coming out in identity right now that will really help organizations work better and push forward. I think in vuln management and just general process management and helping to be more efficient or to automate everything from hunt all the way into kind of vuln tracking and process. I think that there's some good stuff that's really happening in that space. And then I generally like anything that follows the trend of where enterprises are going. Big, old, slow enterprises need help. So anything that allows me to do vuln scanning in the cloud where I have destructible infrastructure, anything like Twistlock, for instance, that helps me follow where my technology organizations are going, that's pretty hot to me because that helps me kind of stay up with the business and the trends of what's happening.
One is protection and defense, and within protection and defense, some of the things that we didn't talk about is access and network. And it's interesting that, you know, for the past like 10, 15 years, the network has been pretty much ignored for a really long time because, you know, you're kind of addressing it through either endpoint protection or, you know, let the threat come in and insider protection and so forth. But now we do have technology available that can actually scan it. So there is a bunch of opportunities in and around that. So similarly with code and what's happening. But all of that is on the protection side. But the other side that's less so from enterprise perspective, but it's from the product development standpoint, is security built in. I do think increasingly as new products are starting to built in, not just in IoT and IT-OT combination, but across the board in every software that's being developed, with a bunch of folks outside of this room as well, I got to start thinking about security built in, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of that, and especially as we think about a lot more forward-looking.